10 surprisingly good cheap clones coming up. Hello friends, I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman. Welcome back to the channel guys, I hope that all of you are doing well. It's time for your daily dose of some fragrance content, and as I said in the opening of the video today, I'll be talking about very cheap but at the same time surprisingly good clones that I've just recently added to my collection. The first such fragrance that I've included in today's video comes from the brand of Rayhaan Prestige, and it's called Ishatar Citrus Oud. And this one is a clone of Mancero's Cedrat Boisé, the original Cedrat Boisé, and it actually is a very good clone of Cedrat Boisé. You get a pressurized sprayer, like with many other fragrances from Rayhaan Prestige. I keep praising this brand. I know it's not very popular right now, but I do believe that with time this brand will pick up more and more popularity, because I definitely think that they offer fantastic quality. They're a little bit more expensive, but still at least you get great quality in return. Ishatar Citrus Oud on its own smells very similar to Cedrat Boisé, to the OG Cedrat Boisé. You got this very Aventus style fragrance, just like the original is somewhat close to Aventus. You get the citrusy opening, the spices, the ouds. It's a very masculine scent, a very versatile scent that works all year round and has a very good quality, as you saw, pressurized sprayer, and also has a great performance. And by great I mean pretty similar to what I get out of my bottle of the original fragrance. The next one that I included in today's video comes from the brand of Ahmed Al Maghribi, and it's called Simply Blue, and this is a clone with a Middle Eastern twist of none other than the king of blue scents, and I'm talking about Bleu de Chanel. In particular to the original, the EDT version. Again, you get the fragrance with a pressurized sprayer that's very affordable. In this case it's even cheaper than the first one that I showed you, and this in the air smells very similar to to Bleu de Chanel. It's a little bit more spicy, it's a little bit more musky. It's not a one-to-one clone to Bleu de Chanel, maybe even smelling like a sort of a mix between the EDT and the EDP version. The opening is maybe closer to the EDT because it's fresher, and then the dry down becomes a little bit more woody, a little bit more musky, and that way making it somewhat close to a Bleu de Chanel EDP. Offers really good quality and very good performance, pretty much on par with the original fragrances from Chanel, but at a fraction of the price, especially nowadays with the prices of Chanel fragrances skyrocketing so high. This is a great alternative for a very affordable price. The next one that I included in today's video comes from a brand that's called Volare. I know it's not very popular at the moment, but this is a new clone sub-brand that's under the Lattafa umbrella. It's very similar to Maison Alhambra, but the way that this is different to Maison Alhambra is the fact that this is Volare fragrances, at least what I've seen from Volare, is not, they don't straight up copy the packaging and the bottle design of the original fragrances, at least in most cases, unlike Maison Alhambra, but they're another clone sub-brand of Lattafa. This particular one that I've included in today's video is part of the Reload line, and it's called Reload Intense for Men, and this has been inspired by Hugo Boss Bottled Intense EDP, and it's a very nicely done clone of the original fragrance. You got this very sort of an festive, very cold weather appropriate scent profile that has some apple sweetness. You got a lot of cinnamon spiciness, you got vanillic sweetness, you got some ouds. It's a very nice fragrance that actually has very decent quality, and in the air smells very similar to the original fragrance. Also offers pretty decent performance and all that for an affordable price. So this is a Reload Intense for Men from the brand of Volare. The next one that I included in today's video comes from the brand of Hadlash. It's one of my recent purchases. This one is called Valor Chivalry, and this is a clone of Nishane Hashivat. And it smells very similar to Hashivat, maybe slightly more, ever more spicy in the opening compared to Hashivat, slightly less sweet, but on the dry down it gets very close to Hashivat. I really like the original scent. It's something that's done again in a sort of an Aventish style, just like Ishatar Citrus Oud and Cedrat Boisé, but this is more fruity, fresher, more citrusy, and also more mossy, just like the original fragrance from Nishane is. The quality here seems to be very decent. I've had this for a few days now. I've been testing it out. The performance also seems to be very decent. Not as good as the original one, but I picked this one up for a price that's roughly about a fifth of the price of the original fragrance. And I've been impressed by the quality. Scent-wise, very similar, especially on the dry down. Slightly different opening, but I think it's a really nice alternative for those of you who are looking for a clone of Nishane Hashivat. The next one that I included in today's video comes from the brand of Art Al Zafran, and it's called Al Dirham Special Edition. I've featured this one in quite a few videos lately because of what it's doing and how it's doing it. This one is a clone of Parfum de Marly's Altair. It's a very nicely done clone of Altair, and this is by far the cheapest clone of Altair that I have in my collection. It also feels the furthest away out of the 3 clones that I have, but still, for the price that this is going for, I think it's a very nice, nicely done fragrance from the brand of Art Al Zafran. Smells very similar to Altair, especially in the air. Up close there are a few differences, noticeable differences. Mainly this feels less vanillic, it feels less cinnamony compared to the original one. It just all around feels slightly less sweet, but this one having a little bit more of a green touch, feeling slightly more floral up close, also having a little bit more cardamom spiciness. There's an apple note in this one that replaces a bit of the vanillic sweetness, but other than that you still get the vanilla, the cinnamon, the amber on the dry down, the ambroxan. Smells very nice in the air. The quality is actually surprisingly good, and as I said, this is by far the cheapest clone of Altair that I have in my collection, and it also has a very respectable performance. The next few that I've included in today's video all come from the brand of Fragrance World. The first one is called Varak Gold. This one is supposedly a clone of 1 Million Golden Oud. Now, I've never tried the original fragrance, but this one definitely smells very interesting. It smells very different from what you get with the original line of fragrances from 1 Million. This is like a more mature version of that scent DNA. This feels a lot more oody, feels slightly balsamic. There's not much brightness in this one, maybe a hint of some citruses in the opening, but other than that, this is very woody, very balsamic, slightly dark. There's an agar oud note in here that feels just a hint animalic, it's not overwhelming. Also, there's a hint of booziness in the opening of this fragrance, and on the dry down you get a bit of florals and also quite a bit of ambery sweetness. It's not a super sweet fragrance. Again, this definitely feels like a more mature version of something that's made out of the 1 Million line. The quality is very nice and also offers very decent performance, this being lasting for 7 to 8 hours on my skin without any problem. But again, keep in mind that the opening can be just a little bit challenging. Other than that though, the scent itself is really nice. The next one that I've included in today's video is called Heart Oud, an interesting name for a fragrance. This one is supposedly inspired by a fragrance from Bath and Body Works that's called Mahogany Ouds, I think, the original one. I've never had experience with the original one, but I really like the way that Heart Oud actually smells. In a way, it smells similar to Varak Gold, but it's again, because it has a lot of woodiness, but it lacks the agar oud note. This is more like cedar oud and those type of ouds, and this is a lot sweeter. It has a lot of vanillic and amber sweetness on its dry down. Feels almost chocolatey. A very nice, very cozy fragrance. Maybe a hint of tobacco somewhere in the background. It's a really nice fragrance. I've been really enjoying wearing a Heart Oud. Very sweet, very cozy. Very cold weather appropriate fragrance. Performance is more on the average side, but I can forgive that because this is a very cheap fragrance and you can overspray this one freely, and in my opinion it feels almost perfectly unisex. Again, a very nice surprise from the brand of Fragrance World. And the last scent from the brand of Fragrance World that I included in today's video is one of the later releases. It's called Proud of You Tobacco, and as you can probably guess, this one is inspired by Stronger With You Tobacco. And it actually smells very similar to the original one. Now, the way that this differs in the opening feels maybe a hint more fresh, a hint more airy compared to the original one. But other than that, you know, if you're familiar with the original Stronger With You line, you know all about it. It's sweet, it's woody, it's slightly spicy, it's very wearable cold weather scent, very cozy, very likable scent, a lot of sweetness. This one having the inclusion of a tobacco note. And again, especially on the dry down, smells very similar to the original one. Quality is very nice and the performance is almost on par with the original. And the last two that I've included in today's video both come from the brand of Armaf. Again, some recent additions to my collection. The first one is called Odyssey Limoni. It comes in this green and yellow, very bright, very colorful bottle, part of the Odyssey line. And this one is an interesting clone with a twist of Louis Vuitton's Afternoon Swim. But this is like a very, as the name would suggest, very lemony, very citrusy take on the original scent itself. Opens up in a very bright, very fresh, super fresh way. You got a lot of citruses, you got bergamot, you got a lemon note that feels quite realistic actually, and doesn't feel very synthetic, something that's pretty surprising. Some orange, some mandarin, some ginger that adds even more freshness and sort of a zinginess in the opening of this fragrance, and it's a very nice, very bright opening, very uplifting first few minutes. When this goes into the dry down, it becomes more musky, slightly darkens up. There's a bit of ambers on the dry down, which are giving some sweetness, maybe a hint of oats, but all around this is a very fresh, very bright fragrance. When I initially got this one, you know, I didn't expect much of a performance out of it because of the amount of freshness that it has, and initially it wasn't super strong, but after a few weeks this actually started to perform quite nicely on my skin, and nowadays it's giving me something like 7 hours of performance, which is more than adequate considering how fresh of a fragrance this one is. And the second Armaf fragrance that I included in today's video is called Armaf the King, or Checkmate the King, I think is the full name of this fragrance. This one is inspired by Jean-Paul Gaultier's Scandal Absolu, and it smells very similar to the original one, maybe even feeling a little bit darker than the OG, because the OG still has a hint of freshness in the opening, and this one pretty much amidst all the freshness and it goes straight into the sweet notes of the original fragrance. A lot of vanillic sweetness, a lot of ambery sweetness, the caramel sweetness, everything that you will find in the original, especially on the dry down, you'll find with the King from Armaf. Very sweet fragrance that smells of a very nice quality and offers a very good performance. Not as strong as the original, but still pretty strong fragrance. It's been easily giving me about 8 hours of performance, and all that for a very affordable price. So guys, in today's video I showed you 10 very cheap and at the same time surprisingly good cologne fragrances. I hope that you found this video interesting to watch. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me tomorrow for your daily dose of some fragrance content. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.